I'm sorry, I figured you were probably helping somebody.
Okay, welcome to today's webinar titled Nontraditional Career Preparation, Root Causes and Strategies, presented by Mimi Lufkin. My name is Greg Nagy, and I am the Virtual Learning Community Manager from The Ohio State University, who provides technical support for the STEM Equity Pipeline Project. Before we start the presentation, I would like to go over some housekeeping items for this webinar. This webinar is scheduled to last roughly 1 hour, and is being recorded in order to view this presentation in its entirety later. The recorded webinar will be available in the next few days on the www.stemequitypipeline.org website. As you've already found out, you'll be watching the presenter present slides through the WebEx interface while listening to the presenter talk over your phone. If you cannot get the WebEx software to work today, you can download today's slides from the homepage of the stemequitypipeline.org website and follow along using your phone. All the attendees' phones have been automatically muted. The presenter will answer questions after the presentation. However, we can take questions at any time. This is how we take questions. At any time during the presentation and during the Q&A, you may submit a question by typing it in the Q&A panel at the bottom right of your WebEx screen. The presenter or I will read and respond to these questions at the end of the presentation. I'd like to start the webinar by introducing Mimi Lufkin, CEO, National Alliance for Partnerships and Equity Education Foundation. Mimi?
Thank you, Greg. Good afternoon, everyone, those of you on the East Coast, and as we travel to the West, good morning. It's a pleasure to have you all here today. It looks like we have great attendance. There are about 94 people right now on the webinar. And I want to encourage you to communicate with me certainly via the chat function or the Q&A function on the right-hand side of your screen as we go through today's webinar. Your phones are muted at the moment. And if you have questions, I see Farouz and Joyce, your hands are up. The best way to handle those, at least at this point until the end of the webinar, would be for you to type your questions in the Q&A box. And they will be either answered by me as we're going along, or if it's a technical issue, then we have Greg and also Freda Walker who can help you. Well, today's webinar is focused on root causes and strategies, tools for professional development. For those of you who've been involved in this project previously, you know we've had a document that we've been using for quite a few years, actually, since 2004, that is a review of the research literature. And today's webinar is to introduce you to the newest version of that piece, as well as a web-based tool that we've developed to help you with exploration around root causes. And it's really more of an educational and informational website as you look at how to do your root cause research in the process, in the 5-step program improvement process. But before I jump way ahead of myself, let's first of all find out who's on today's call. So we're going to have a, not who's on today's call, but how you heard about today's webinar. It always helps us in terms of our outreach to folks. And part of the reason why I'm really asking this today, and you'll have a poll will pop up in just a moment that'll ask these questions. You can actually respond to any one of these responses. So there's multiple choices here. Pick as many of these as apply. And you'll notice that next to some of them I have this little red chat thing that says email from another listserv. If you could tell me by actually just typing in the chat function and sending to me the message what listserv it was that you may have heard this about from, if it wasn't from our listserv, or if you heard about it at a presentation at a conference or announcement in another newsletter or on another website other than our website, that information is always very useful to us. But I think the most surprising thing about today's webinar is we have 102 people now signed up, and we only advertised this webinar for 4 days. So it's obvious this is a topic that everyone cares about. Greg, can you load the poll, or do I need to do? Oh, here we go. There it is. Sorry. You'll notice on the right-hand side of your screen there's a little polling box, and you can pick any one of those boxes. Just remember, when you finish checking the boxes that apply to you, if you would hit the Submit button down at the bottom right-hand side of your screen so that your answers may be recorded. And then there's a 1-minute time limit, and right now we've got about 25 seconds have elapsed for this poll. So we'll let you work on that poll while I move forward and talk a little bit about the project, and we'll come back to the poll results in a minute. I just want to remind folks who maybe we have some new people on today's call that the STEM Equity Pipeline is a project of the National Alliance for Partnerships in Equity Education Foundations, funded by the National Science Foundation out of their Human Resources Directorate, the Gender and Science and Engineering Program. And this is an Extension Services grant. As an Extension Services grant, we have a variety of goals that are part of our project, and it's really about professional development. The three goals are to build the capacity of the formal education community to provide high-quality professional development on gender equity and STEM education. So really, how do we integrate gender equity into STEM professional development with educators in the states that we're working in? We're also interested in connecting this work to existing accountability systems, and because of the work that we've done for years around the career and technical education legislation, we're particularly interested in looking at the non-traditional measures in career and tech ed as one of the accountability systems that this work is connected to. And lastly, of course, is to broaden the commitment to gender equity and STEM education through a variety of outreach activities that we do. So if you look at the right-hand side of your screen, you can see the results of the poll. It looks like most of you heard about this directly through our listserv, so that's fantastic to know that our communications are working well, and that some of you are getting email forwarded from other locations from a colleague. And I would encourage you, if you are interested in receiving this information directly, that you go to the STEM Equity Pipeline website. It's just www.stemequitypipeline.org. And on the left-hand side of the home page, there's a button that says register. If you go in there and enter your information, you'll automatically be added to the listserv, and you can receive this information directly, rather than having to rely on your friends. Quickly, a little bit about the project. Again, I mentioned the word professional development now about 7 times, I think, so I think you get the gist that we're really focused on working with teachers in the training environment, and that we provide consulting and technical assistance and web-based professional learning opportunities, particularly through our website, and which we'll take a look at today, some of those things. And then also the best practices handbook is a virtual handbook. Basically, we're looking at trying to build a best practices section of our website around the lessons that we learn as we move forward in this project. For those of you who may not be involved currently, there are 7 states participating at this point: California, Iowa, Illinois, Minnesota, Missouri, Oklahoma, and Wisconsin. I would encourage you to participate on the state team from those states, whether it's actively or when you can attend a state team meeting or participate in training that's going on in the state regarding this kind of work. The contact information for the state contacts for each of these states is also available on the STEM Equity Pipeline website and under the state teams menu item. And, of course, participating in the virtual learning community by going to the website as well as these kinds of webinars, so you're already doing that, and so that's fantastic. So we have another poll. I want to make sure I know a little bit about who's on the call today and who's participating in the webinar. And so if you would pick one of these choices, if you're a school or a college administrator, a faculty member, student services or staff person or counselor, a state agency staff person or a STEM organization staff person, or if you can't sort of feel like you can categorize yourself into one of those 5, if you pick number 6, that would be great. And you'll see on the right-hand side of your screen the polls popped up there. Again, please pick one of those boxes and hit the submit button at the bottom right-hand side, and we'll take a look at who's on the call in just a moment. Central to our work in the STEM Equity Pipeline Project is this training program that we call the 5-Step Program Improvement Process. And the 5-Step Program Improvement Process is really about working with local educational agencies on how to identify, first of all, how to use their data to document performance results, to identify where there are gaps in performance between various student groups or around a particular issue or measure. In our case, we're interested in how women and girls are doing in STEM-related career and technical education programs. and then looking at root causes, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of that today, choosing best solutions that are going to impact the root cause that you've identified, and then really how to design appropriate evaluations, which is step 4, and how to manage a project implementation process is step 5. And really our work today is focused on taking a look at step 2 and step 3 through a resource tool that I want to share with you. I'm not going to spend a lot of time today actually talking about root causes or talking about solutions, but I want to introduce you to a document that can assist you in educating yourself as well as others in a professional development situation, and a web-based tool as well for looking at root causes and solutions. Okay. Someone is asking me a chat question about how do I call in. And Greg, did you get this from Karen Lautner?
Yeah.
Okay, so you can help her. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Don't forget your poll results.
Oh, thank you. My poll results. Okay, it looks like we have quite a few administrators on today's call, about 18%. Our other group, again, is the largest response rate. I need to come up with some other categories that capture some of the rest of you. Looks like 22% counselors, student services folks, so people who are working directly with students potentially on maybe their career choice options as well as course selections. So it looks again like a good mix of people. I think that all of you will find the information in the tool useful to you as we move forward. So the next, there's another poll I'm going to ask. I'm keeping you all busy today. Because I'm really curious to know how many of you, when I talk about step 2, because I mentioned this 5-step process very quickly, and step 2, identifying root causes, is central and core to really the whole process, that this is one of the really important steps. I'm curious as to how many of you are familiar with the 5-step process that we've been using in our work, whether you've read any materials on the Pipeline website, whether you participated in a webinar. We did a webinar on step 2 on November 19th. It's archived on the STEM Equity Pipeline website. You can go there and watch it, and basically it's a webinar that I did that reviews all of the root causes that are in the research literature and talks about in detail about each one of them, and could be a very educational tool to supplement certainly what we're going to be doing today. But I would encourage you to do that if you haven't viewed it. I'm curious how many of you have actually gone back and viewed the webinar, and then whether or not you've attended in person live a 5-step program improvement process training or workshop in your state. So Greg will pop up the poll here, and we'll see what the responses to that look like. But I'm going to, as you're working on that, I'm going to go ahead and move forward and talk about the new document that we've developed. This is a research summary. It's called Nontraditional Career Preparation, Root Causes and Strategies. The author of this document is Lynn Reha at the Illinois Center for Specialized Professional Support. She was the major author of this piece. I assisted in doing reviews of the document and made some edit changes to it, as well as Lori Harrison from Frithill Associates. But the bulk of the work really was done by Lynn. The original document that was done in 2002 was a piece that I wrote, and Lynn really built on this as well as added all the current research to the document. So I want you all to know that if you know Lynn or see Lynn, be sure that you pat her on the back, because this is a great project that she collaborated with us on to complete, and I want to thank her for that. The document itself is, and I'll show it to you in just a minute and tell you how to find it, is basically organized in 2 parts. The first part is an introductory guide. It's organized by categories based on the areas of influence, and each of these categories then has within it root cause information, a theory, and a strategy in a chart format. The root cause categories are broken down into these 5 areas. So the root causes are sort of organized in these issue areas, a section dealing with education, a section dealing with career information, a section on family, a section on internal or individual issues, and then lastly, societal issues that can be addressed or are issues that come out in the research. So the Part 1 section of the document looks like this, and we'll get to the actual document itself so you can download it and print it and take it home to read. It's a tome, I must admit, but it's a fabulous resource document. And what the reason we did this sort of intro table was to provide you with a tool that you could use to discuss the root causes in a workshop setting or in an introductory setting in a much sort of simpler way rather than a more complicated version of this that you'll see in just a minute. But this is just a screenshot of the education section, and you'll see that each piece is organized by, we've got root causes. That's about the darkest red I've seen. Theories and strategies that are identified in this original piece. And then each of the root causes is listed down here on the left column. And then so the theory is named out in the middle column, and then just bulleted strategies are identified in the right column. The next section of the document has very detailed information about each of these pieces. The document is set up such that you can actually click on the link to the root cause item, and it will actually, if you have it on your computer screen, it'll pop you to that section of the more detailed information. So, for example, in Part 2, which is the more comprehensive information section of the document, the root cause is identified, the theory is named, the evidence from the research is called out and explained. There's a section dealing with recommendations and strategies regarding that particular root cause. And then there are effective practices and resources that relate specifically to that root cause that are called out in the document as well. So this is what that section of the piece looks like. Much more detailed information. And all of the information that's in this section of the document, you'll notice as you see this on the screenshot, and when you actually download the document and look at it yourself, you'll see it as well, that everything in here is referenced. There's a huge resource reference list at the end of the document. There's nothing in here that is named or called out that didn't have research directly related to it that proved that it was an effective practice or that it was a particular outcome of a research project. None of this stuff that's in here is anecdotal or was Lynn or mine or Lori's perceptions about the way in which we think things should be. So we were very, very careful in making sure that what was included in the document is clearly research-based information. I'm going to go ahead and share my desktop with you at this moment and show you where you can go find this document so that you can download it yourself. Yeah.
I don't know if you want to address the poll or not.
Oh, totally forgot all about it. I'm so sorry. I get carried away. Let me take a look at the results for a second. I have to sort of get a scan of this. Now, that's interesting. 28% of you said that this is I would assume when you respond to the word nothing, it means this is the first time that you've heard of either the 5-step process or certainly done anything around root causes. So for you, for the group, the 24 of you responded to this, I really would encourage you to go take a look. First of all, read the document, and then go look at the archived webinar that we did on Step 2 that I'll show you in here in just a second where to find it. Looks like many of you have read materials on this. We've got 12 people who participated in the live webinar, 4 that viewed archived it, so that's 16 of you who at least seen that piece. So the rest of you should go do that because I think that would really be helpful. And we have a good group, 17 people who've actually physically attended a 5-step program improvement process training. So hopefully you're here for a little bit of a reminder and a use for a new tool that we're presenting to you. So that's great. So I'm going to go ahead and share my desktop with you. And you should see here in just a minute, if it's not already up on your screen, the STEM Equity Pipeline website. And this is at www.stemequitypipeline.org. And I want to show you where you can find this piece. Under the Resources menu, the very last item on the Resources menu is the 5-step program improvement process training resources. I'm going to go to that. And I'm going to go down the page. I think I went too far. I apologize. It's actually on this first screen. So hopefully I'm not jumping ahead of Greg. Please stop me if I get ripping through these too fast. And
I think it's all right now. Okay,
good. I assume you can see the arrow from my cursor, but the non-traditional career preparation, root causes and strategies, a little description of the document, and you can actually download the document by clicking on this link. And I'm going to go ahead and click on it. I'll have it open up here so you can see it. And
mouse.
Pardon me?
We can see your mouse.
Okay, good. So this is the beginning of the document. There will be a cover page with a beautiful design piece that we haven't yet put on this yet, but I wanted to go ahead and share this with you because I know people have been very interested in seeing this piece, and at least the content of it is completed, and so now we'll just have to do the pretty parts, but so you can certainly look back and find that when it's ready. But this is the document itself. If any of you want to get this now and you can minimize your WebEx screen and go to the website yourself and download the document, or hang in with me and I'll just sort of guide you through it for a minute, and after the webinar is over you can go get it. But this is part one, and I'm just going to pop through a few of the pages. This is actually a screenshot that I showed you in the PowerPoint. So the first section deals with education, academic proficiency, access to math and science technology, curriculum, instructional strategies, school, classroom, and climate, and support services. So that's the first section dealing with education. Then there's a section on career information. We've got materials, practices, early intervention, and characteristics of an occupation. And these, again, theory and strategies are named out. Family characteristics, and then internal individual, self-efficacy, attribution, and stereotype threat are fairly large bodies of research on each of these dealing with issues related to self-actualization or the individual's control over the way in which they deal with barriers related to accessing a non-traditional career. And then there is a section on societal issues. Media has negative and positive influences, so we named them both out. Peers, role models and mentoring, and collaboration. And of course, again, the theory and strategies are called out. When you get into part two, and you notice the document has lots of blue text, and all of those blue text pieces are either linked to web-based resources that you can link by having the document up on your computer, and they'll automatically link to the web-based resources, or they may also be links to other parts of the document itself that would have more detailed description. For example, when you get to the section on education, you can click on this back to part one, and it'll take you back to part one, of course, that's logical, to the chart that's at the beginning of the document, so that you can move back and forth through the document relatively quickly. So again, for each of the root causes, there's a piece on theory, evidence, recommendations and strategies, and effective practices and resources. And you'll notice the effective practices and resources sections have hyperlinks that go to, in many of these cases, web-based resources where you can access them. This is the second root cause, just so you get a sense, and this goes on. So there's the next root cause is curriculum, and then the next root cause is instructional strategies. So you can see for each of the sections, there is detailed information that describes each of the root causes. as well as having having resources that are accessible, some brief descriptions, and then access links to many of these pieces. So I'm probably going too fast, but you'll get a sense. And I'll scroll to the very end because this piece is 48 pages long. And at the very back of the document, for those of you who love to go and read research or want to find out how it is we discovered some of these things, all of the items that are named out or called out in the document are referenced in the back, so you can find that information. And the reference list itself is approximately 9 pages, actually 11 pages long, so there's lots of references available there too. And I see something I need to fix. And the document, of course, is a living document, as you expect whenever you do these things. It will find little pieces that are maybe right or wrong about it. So if you're working with it and you notice something that needs to be corrected, please contact us and let us know so that we can make sure that all of the links work. And we've checked everything a million times, but sometimes you never know when something goes haywire. So that's the document itself. I'm going to close that down. I wanted to also share with you what we've done in terms of a web-based tool that might be useful for you. And I'm going to go to it a little different way here. I don't think I have that open. I'm going to go to the NAEP website now. And that web address you'll see I'm typing in my address bar there is napequity.org. Of course, I probably could have gotten it there also by just clicking on the NAEP website link on the STEM Equity Pipeline website. It's another way to get there. And this is the NAEP homepage. And on the NAEP homepage, you'll notice there's the main menu items are over here on the left. And if you click on resources, this is the resource list database that we have in the NAEP website. And you'll notice here there's a section called Root Causes and Strategies, and you can click on that. And this piece is open to the public. Most of the resource section on the NAEP website is actually member accessible only, except for this part. This part is open to the public because it relates so much to the work that we're doing in the STEM Equity Pipeline project. So when you get into this page, basically what we've done here is we have taken the non-traditional career preparation root causes and strategies document, which you can also, by the way, download from this page as well. If you click on this link, it'll open the document for you. But what we've done with it is we've turned it into a web-based tool where you can actually do the exploration that you might want to choose to do by using this tool rather than the document itself. So, for example, you'll notice these are all the categories the root causes are organized by: education, career information, family, internal, individual, and societal issues. And each of the root causes are called out. And I'm going to just take you through one of them right now. If you click on academic proficiency, it takes you to this page where, actually for the whole education section, academic proficiency being the first one, this is the theory statement and the strategy. So this is much like the chart in part 1. So this would be sort of reference to the chart, the part 1 section of the document. But now I want to know about the theory and evidence about academic proficiency, and so I can go click on that link and go to this page, which tells me about the theory and evidence. Interesting. Read it. And then now what I can do is I want to say, all right, I want to see about recommendations and strategies, or maybe I've decided that, I don't think this is what I need to know about. I want to go back to the root causes and strategies homepage and pick another root cause, and I can do that by clicking on the link at the bottom of the page. But this other link here that says recommendations and strategies will take me then to the next section of information, like you can find back in the detailed portion of the document itself. And the recommendations and strategies page should open here in a second. There we go. And again, this is the same content that's found in the document itself, but in a little more interactive format. and I can read about recommendations and strategies related to academic proficiency. I can also, let's say I've decided that, no, it's really societal issues I want to look at. I can always go back to just societal issues by clicking here and go look at theory and evidence related to some of the root causes under this. So all the pages can help you get back and forth to various parts of the document. So I read this and I say, I really want to learn about a couple of effective practices and resources that might help me, or I really need to go back and look at theory and evidence again. So this link takes me back to the theory and evidence piece. Or maybe, again, I've decided I want to go all the way back to the main homepage of the root causes document and pick another root cause category or look at what some of the summaries are that are on that page. So let's say I'm going to keep digging deeper into academic proficiency. I then can go to the effective practices and resources page. And here I've got some links. If I want to look at the TechReach program, I can click on this. It will take me to their website. Let's say I want to watch this webinar on Introduction to 3D Spatial Visualization and Active Approach. That was done by Cheryl Sorby. This takes me to the page where that webinar is archived. Maybe math camps, because one of the things that talked about in the strategies was how math camps is very supportive of young girls in terms of pursuing mathematics and science. We have a web resource page on the STEM Equity Pipeline that's all about camps, and so this will take you to that page. This section of the document talks about stereotype threat in relationship to academic proficiency, and so there's a web page called reducingstereotypethreat.org. This link will take me to that information. And this section of our website will be expanded continuously as we find more and more resources, that relate directly to the root cause that's called out in the document. So that is basically how the root causes pages are organized. And you'll see here you can go to any one of these links and find more information. For example, let's say it's self-efficacy. Again, following the same sort of string of information. This mirroring the Part 1 section, and then when I go into this theory and evidence page, or if I want to go directly to strategies, I can here. That'll take me to the other parts of the website. But this is up and running, so feel free to go and explore it at your leisure. I'm going to go back to the STEM Equity Pipeline webpage, and I think probably, the easiest way for me to do that is I'll click on the STEM Equity Pipeline link on the right-hand side of this page. And I want to be sure that you know about where some of these, again, where these things can be found. The 5-step program improvement process training resources has the document loaded here. We'll also be adding a link to that foundation section, the web-based tool on this page as well. And so that's where those resources can be found. I am going to, and to make sure that you know where our archive webinars are found also, under the professional development menu, the archive webinars and webcasts, you click on this link, that'll take you to a page. And for those of you who want to go ahead and review the Step 2 webinar, that's where you would do that. I'm going to go back now to where we were. And I've talked to you about the 2 ways you can find the document. So let's talk for just a minute about how to use this as a professional development tool. We organized the document specifically, at least the printable version of the document, specifically into 2 parts with the intent that the introductory table, which is actually 6 pages long, so it would be 3 pages double-sided when copied, can be used as a reviewed document. We do say very clearly in the document itself that the 2 components really should be used together, but printing a 48-page document is probably not a realistic consideration in a situation where you're doing, a short workshop or that sort of thing. And so that's why really the tool at the beginning, or the beginning part of the document, was developed with that in mind. So, for example, if you are using the introductory table in a workshop setting, you could easily break into groups around each of the categories, for example, education or societal issues or individual, family, etc., and have each, or you could do it by root causes if you took the groups and broke them up by root cause. Have each of the groups discuss a root cause that they have witnessed. It's often interesting because when people have the ability or the opportunity to share what they've experienced in relationship to what the research says exists, it sort of helps them connect to understanding the basis of that information in a more personal way. And in a small group setting, that works very well in a workshop situation. And secondly, then, to have them also talk about what kinds of strategies have any of them had experience implementing that relate to some of those root causes, and what experiences have they had with that. And have the group sort of summarize that information, and of course then you can do a report out process in doing that. Now, this kind of an activity is fairly time consuming and could take, depending on the size of your group, certainly a full hour's workshop session just to do simply something as easy as this. Realizing that using only the introductory table as the content, the introductory table only includes information on it related to the theory of the root cause and the strategies, and named very simply, that you really should be sure that all the folks if you're going to use it in this way, know how to access the full document so that they can read the full content, because it's really you're sort of doing a disservice to them if they don't understand the depth of the information. But realizing in time constraints that oftentimes if you can get people to connect personally with the information, they're more likely to go back and look at the documents to support what you've been discussing. Of course, there's always the archived webinar. You can encourage them to go and take a look at that too, because that also talks about each of the root causes in a different, depending on how they like to learn. Another way, of course, is to use the complete document and to jigsaw, which a term I hope many of you have heard before, where you actually take it. You could apply each of the sections, each of the root cause section in the full document, where you've got all the complete information. Give each person, or if depending on how many people you have in your session, small groups or pairs, and have them actually spend the time reading that. And preparing a summary of what they glean from the information to present to the rest of the group in an effort that they then share their knowledge with one another rather than always hearing specifically from you. You don't have to be the expert in this situation. The expertise relies in the content of the document itself, and what you want to try to do in that kind of an experience is to get everyone to learn a little bit enough about each of the pieces so that it triggers them to go look at the document and search it more deeply. But you can do that as well. There are two exercises that we use commonly in our training with the five-step process training that I'm going to take us back to the website so you can find these two pieces, and their instructions for how to do them is included there. But these two exercises are really about getting groups of individuals together to develop a theory about what they think the root causes are that are at play in their institution. It illustrates that in a way that you could go back as part of the beginning of your root cause analysis at your local institution, and also it gets people talking about each of the root causes, and the group exercise in particular is a fairly kinesthetic activity, and we'll go there in a second and I'll show it to you, and creative exercise for what I would consider to be a fairly intellectual content. In order to do either one of these exercises really very well, though, you will have had to have either had the groups read the documents, if you can do a silent reading exercise, or had done one of the other two exercises that we just talked about, where either they learn from each other about what they've read in a jigsaw exercise or actually have a chance to review content probably more carefully explained by you if you feel that you're in a position to do that. So let me just bounce back to the STEM Equity Pipeline website and show you where to find us. If you go to the resources section again, this is my favorite page here, the 5-step program improvement process training resources. And I'm going to scroll down. At the bottom down here, you can see there is something called Developing a Root Cause Theory. And these are two exercises that basically complement each other. And I'm going to go ahead and open the root causes exercises instructions because the other document that's loaded there is just a document that will help you create the cards that you need for the group exercise. So the group exercise is designed specifically to bring a group of people. Typically, I like to do these in groups of 5. And what you do before you're going to do the workshop is you want to have slips of paper, and I try to do them in multiple colors, every root cause on a different color, of each of the named root causes that are in the document on all these colors. And then what you want to do is to give each group, organize the groups into 5 or less, and give each group a bundle of cards. In other words, a card or a slip of paper, whatever works for you, for each of the root causes so that they have a bundle of cards with all the root causes named on them. A piece of a flip chart paper, a couple of marking pens, and access to masking tape. And I give very unclear instructions on purpose because this is really a creative exercise, and I want the groups, when they do these, to come up with their own constructs about how they think about the root causes in general. And the instructions I give are listed here. We review the root cause cards, make sure everybody, recognizes them from the document itself. And then I ask them to arrange the root causes by their group sense of their impact and relationship to students in programs non-traditional for their gender. Now, that's pretty vague instructions, but you would be amazed to, and those of you who've experienced this know that this exercise gets its own life, and it's really wonderful because some of the things that people have created have been absolutely fantastic. And more importantly, what it does is gets the group of 5 people talking about what they think these things really mean and what they've seen happen and how do they think the root causes impact students and in what places and where and in what relationships, whether it's early in their life or later in their life, or are there root causes they think have interplay. And so they then take the cards and organize them, and it's amazing the kinds of beautiful, creative, colorful things that people come up with on their flip chart paper and post them on the wall, and then each group has the opportunity to report out and explain why they've organized the slips of paper the way that they have. And it really oftentimes initiates great discussion about which root causes they think are really having an impact on their students. So that's one of the exercises. I often do the individual exercise in the same instance as the group exercise in an effort to provide everyone a voice, because oftentimes in group situations there may be people who are more engaged or more involved than others, and so you want to try to have everybody get a chance to provide their opinion. And this one's more of a democratic process. What I do is I put flip chart paper around the room, and every piece has the name of a root cause posted on it. I give everyone 4 colored sticky dots, the ones you can buy at Staples that are on a sheet of paper, and I cut them into slips so they have 4 dots. And they are allowed then to go and vote, basically, for which root causes they think are the most significant in terms of their impact on students entering or being retained in a non-traditional program, as far as what are the biggest barriers they think that their students might be experiencing. So the interesting thing about doing that, when you then go and I go around and I write down the numbers, this is a good one to do, especially in a large group, and I write down each one of the root causes, how many votes they got. I'm also very clear that they have to vote for 4 different ones. They can't put all their 4 dots on one. And and then taking a look at which ones sort of bubbled to the top, and then going back and looking at the way in which the root causes were organized in the group exercise, whether or not there's appears to be some continuity or differences between how those things may have, which root causes showed up sort of in more prominent locations versus the ones that received the highest votes. And again, it just generates good conversation for people really thinking hard about what these things mean and what their students might be experiencing back at home. Both exercises can be done separately. They don't have to necessarily be done at the same time. They could be done in isolated moments depending on how much time you have. The individual exercise certainly is one that you can do very quickly and is a very interesting exercise to sort of get which root causes people think are the biggest barriers students are facing out on the table in a very interactive way. So these are described in the facilitator instructions, and you can access that directly at the website. And the cards are also prepared for you there. They're sheets of paper with the names of the root causes in big print, and all you have to do is put them in the copy machine and slice them up. So this exercise is kind of set and ready to go for you to use at your, whenever you have a chance. So, I am sure that many of you would have lots to propose about other exercises you might consider in ways in which to use this document, and I must admit that I would love to hear from you about what ideas you might have. And so I'm going to encourage you to send an email to me, and I'll give you my email address in a minute, describing some exercises you maybe use this tool with, or ideas that you might have about how to use the tool. And one of the things we can do is post those up on the website. I'm thinking this might make a good blog, actually. Have to think about that. And if you think that's a great idea, I'd love to hear from you about the fact that you'd be willing to contribute to a blog about how to use the tool. But I think that there are lots of ways this tool can be used in a variety of settings depending on the circumstances you're in. So I have one last poll I want to ask. And we'll have Greg post this up here in just a second. But what I'd like to know from you all is, how do you see yourself using this tool? Do you primarily think you'll use it for your own education, your own edification? And you can answer multiples of these. Will you share it immediately with some of your colleagues, your professional colleagues, people at your site? Or do you know that it's likely that you're going to use this in a professional development presentation, whether it's a staff development situation or a workshop, or you have an opportunity to present to others? I would like to know how many of you think you might be doing that. And if there's something else that you might do with it, you can click the other box. And again, if you want to let me know what that is, enter that information in the chat function there, and we'll get a chance to see what some of those options are. But for me, what's important, in the work that we're doing here, certainly in evaluating whether the development of these tools are useful to you, whether or not you use them is what's imperative from our perspective. So whether you use it for yourself or you share it with others or you actually use it in a professional development situation, which is what we're ultimately really interested in, where you're training others, that's the kind of thing we need to know. So the poll is up on the right. If you'll take a minute, click a box or two or three or four, and press the submit button. That'll let me know a little bit about whether or not you think you will find this tool a valuable resource for you and how you might possibly use it. I noticed that there was a question. I'm looking at the questions for a second while you guys are working on the poll. That Jan Hutz asked about when the web page resources are updated, will the document also be updated? Yes. Jan, basically, there'll be two things that'll happen. One is we'll update the document to a point. One of the things that we're hoping to do is the resources database that we have on the STEM Equity Pipeline right now. If you go to the resources menu on the STEM Equity Pipeline, the online resources, it's huge sections dealing with all sorts of things. We'd like to eventually organize a lot of that in a searchable database by the root cause as a keyword. That will be one way we'll use this. That won't, of course, be in the document. That would make the document huge. The document probably in terms of the resources section, the last sections of each of those pieces, probably will not expand them very much, or the document will get really large. But if there's any research, updated research, or anything that we add to the website in the other sections, like the strategies pieces, the pieces dealing with evidence or theory, if we change any of those on the website, then the document will also be edited to reflect that. So one of the things that we will do is always, when an update of that document occurs, we'll send an announcement out on the listserv so everybody's aware that there's been an update. And we'll also be sure that the document has a version date on it so that people can people are sure that they have whatever the most recent version is based on the one that's also located on the website too, so that there's no confusion about that. But that's a great question. We'll try to keep those things in line, certainly together, so there's no differences between the two. I want to remind you that on sorry, I lost my polling page for a second here. Actually, let me back up, and since the poll results are up, let me look at those. It looks like we've got, wow, 32 people are going to use this in a professional development situation. Yahoo! That is very exciting. I'm sorry, I wish you could see me jumping up and down in my chair. That's our ultimate goal, so that's great. And I'm glad that so many of you also are going to share it immediately with your colleagues. So please feel free to distribute the document widely. That's the purpose, and to share the website reference as well. And certainly 41 of you are going to use it for your own education, and that's a very useful tool. I hope you can apply the information that's in there to much of your work that you're doing already. I want to remind you about the next webinar, which is Thursday, June 18th. We're excited about having Jessica Bullock with us, who is the Girl Tech Site Coordinator at the Francis Tuttle Technology Center in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Girl Tech is this year's recipient of the Programs and Practices That Work Award, which you'll learn more about at this during the webinar if you're interested in applying for this award. And she's going to be talking about their Girl Tech program, which is a mentoring program for girls for STEM careers, and they've had great success with it. They have both online activities as well as in-person activities, and it's really improved their recruitment and retention rates significantly in their STEM-related career and technical education programs at the Francis Tuttle Technology Center. So I'd encourage you to put this on your calendar. If you haven't registered for it yet, just go to the STEM Equity Pipeline website. On the home page is information about the webinar, and you can click on the registration button and get signed in. Okay, we have 3 minutes, I guess, or a couple minutes here if there are any particular questions. I've been trying to watch the Q&A to see if there's stuff up that I should respond to. Let me close my polling window. And I don't see anything else to answer. So if there's nothing else, for the good of the order, if I'm missing anything, please.
Maybe there may be a couple things in the chat. I don't know if you read through them all.
Let me look at the chat. Hang on a second. Well, let's see. What does it say? Didn't realize it could use selected more than one answer. I will use this tool for multiple purposes. I'm a female. So lots of good feedback about how people are going to use this. This is great. Someone selected other because they're going to use this in the Career Tech Ed program at the LA Unified School District. Fantastic. And someone's going to publish the grid in their summer newsletter. These are all fabulous ideas. But I don't see any questions, so I think that's good, but I'm glad I was able to share at least some of the responses some of you are having. Is another one. It says a practicing professional engineer and also a school board member. She's going to encourage our school district staff to use it. And then when she retires, she'd like to become more active in sharing these types of programs. So that's fantastic. That's Barbara Copland from Minnesota and Wisconsin area. Okay. Well, I think hopefully I've at least, you know where to find the document. You can go dig around. Please play on the website. And if you find anything that needs updating, changing, fixing, please let us know. As many eyes as I know have looked at this, I'm sure there's something we've missed. And I want to again thank all of you for participating on today's webinar. The attendance has been fantastic. And Greg, I'll turn it back to you for any wrap-up, anything I've forgotten.
Okay. Thank you all for joining us today. Remember that this webinar will be available on the STEMequitypipeline.org website under the Professional Development heading, and then under Archived Webinars in the next few days. When you close your WebEx program, or when I close it, a few survey questions will open up in your web browser that we would like for you to answer for us. Thank you all for your time.